All right. Hello, everyone. Everyone hear me okay? Yes? Good? A little more? Like that? Perfect. So welcome to the 1883 Speaker Series. My name is Mike Wozniak. I serve as the Coordinator of Leadership and Programming in the Student Involvement and Parent Programs Office. Each week, we invite a campus or community leader to talk about how today's student can develop their leadership skills, as well as other advice regarding their personal and professional development. We hope you learn some valuable lessons in the next 18 minutes and 83 seconds. For today's speaker, please join me in welcoming the General Manager of the Ralph Engelstad Arena, Jody Hodgson.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for being here. I'm going to kind of run through some of the things that I've learned and kind of give you some of my personal experiences as we go through this today. So appreciate you spending the time here with us. One of the things that I certainly believe in, and I think we're all kind of a product of our environment, right? And I came from a real small town in northern Manitoba, a little place called Bozeman, Manitoba, a town of about 400 people. And when you talk about leadership or professional development, I would admit that I'm a little bit biased and think oftentimes in some of those smaller communities, there's the opportunity to do some of those things on a more frequent basis, and you're kind of thrust into some of those opportunities. And I think I'm a product of that and benefited from some of that. But I would also admit that through that childhood or through those things that shaped me, I kind of grew up in a family with rather low academic expectations. I would admit to you that I also had some pretty low academic expectations of myself as a kid. And I've told a story before to some people when you talk about people in your life that kind of change the path in your life. I was a kid that was graduating high school in Manitoba, and at the time, apparently there was a rule that if you wrote a final exam in your grade 12 year in Canada, which was our senior year, and if you got below a certain percentage, you weren't supposed to be able to pass the course. And I had a teacher who reached out to me, and he called me in, and he said, "Hey, I just graded your final exam." He said, "You fell below the curve, or you fell below the level you're supposed to be at. And I know you need this course to graduate from high school today." And he kind of pulled me aside and said, "Hey, are you going to grow up? Are you going to grow up? Like, when are you going to start applying yourself? You got more opportunity and potential than you're showing, and you better figure it out real quick." So when we talk about leadership or people that take chances on people, I usually tell that one to say, I was a kid that wasn't on a great academic path, and a guy who pulled me aside and helped me is somebody that I'm kind of forever grateful to and kind of got me onto that path. And I see that as kind of one of those moments in my life that has really helped me. And I've gone back and seen that individual since and kind of shaken his hand and said, "Hey, thanks for doing what you did, and thanks for helping me." So that's just a little bit about who I am and where I came from. And I went to college, admittedly. I went to a place called Brandon University in Brandon, Manitoba. I went there because I knew that most of my buddies were going to the University of Manitoba, and I needed to kind of venture out on my own and change the way I was looking at school and doing some other things. So I did that and got a business degree there. Then went and got a master's degree in sports management from the United States Sports Academy down in Mobile, Alabama, and did that because I was nearing the end of my business degree, and I wanted to try and figure out what job I was going to do, right? So I thought I might as well try and apply something to the passion I have for sports, and maybe more specifically the game of hockey. So I went and got a master's degree in that discipline to try and differentiate myself and try and create an opportunity for my career in the sports business industry. Following that, I bounced around with a couple of different minor league hockey franchises, got that degree, then went and worked for a couple of minor league hockey teams. I worked for a team in San Francisco in the old IHL, went to Washington, D.C., where I worked for what is today called an agent or a family advisor and a player representative, then went back to Tacoma, Washington, worked for another hockey team there. So some of the things when I look at my own professional career, I'd say, hey, I think I learned some lessons the old school way, certainly maybe a little bit of the school of hard knocks, and I learned some lessons both from good situations and bad ones. I had a real reality check. My first job, full-time job at a grad school in San Francisco. Worked for a minor league hockey team, and our owner was a private individual. Called everybody into the office one Friday at 4 o'clock and said, "Hey, I'm locking the doors at 5 o'clock. We're ceasing operations. Our team is folding." So there was other people in the organization, I think, that knew what was going on, but I was pretty low on the totem pole, right? And wasn't really given a heads up. And I walked out of there saying, holy smokes, that's the real world. That's real business when you're being told that you're out of work in an hour and everybody was done and the organization was going to fold. So that's a lesson I've taken with me. When people think of entrepreneurs or they think of businesses and think about how am I going to make payroll, how am I going to pay the people that work for me and the families that they take care of, that's certainly something that's always stuck with me. The other thing, I then worked for a minor league hockey team in Tacoma, where I made the change from the team side to the venue side of things. And I really did that based on what I thought would be the best career opportunity and the best balance for me in my life. We got tired of racing each other to the bank. In the minor league hockey world, when they came around and distributed a paper paycheck, you were pretty sure somebody's check was going to bounce, and it'd probably be better to be the guy in the stall beside you than you, right? So we used to joke and say, what's the best way to become a millionaire in minor league hockey? We'd say you start with 5 and you'll be down to 1 million real quick. So the venue side, I thought, provided a lot more stability. It was a lot more diversified, sports and entertainment, usually a little more stable business model. So that's what I did. And I made the change and went to a place called the Tacoma Dome, where our hockey team had played just south of Seattle. And there, kind of great opportunity. When I talk to young people, I always talk about trying to find jobs that I think provide wide breadth of opportunity, where you don't get pigeonholed into a real narrow lane. And that's what the Tacoma Dome was for me. I had an opportunity there. I remember in one 7-day period, we did the Rolling Stones, Paul McCartney, Tom Petty, and Guns N' Roses. 4 shows in 7 days. And after that, you might do a monster truck show and a arena cross and a Cambodian New Year celebration and anything else. We only had 2 rules. Is it safe, and can you make money? And if we could check those 2 boxes, we did it. So it was a great place to learn. And I often talk to young people about trying to find those opportunities where you can play a really big role in a small organization and do lots of things. I thought that really benefited me. So I moved from a place in Tacoma that was a jack of all trades and where I was doing a little bit of everything to a place that I think is one of the most special venues in America, right? I've been here at the Ralph since 2005. I moved here to what I knew was a very hockey-specific venue and kind of a one-of-a-kind venue in our industry. Among my colleagues around the country, everybody was kind of aware of the Ralph and aware of the way it had been built and how it was managed. And I think I'm lucky today to work in maybe the best venue management job in the country. My colleagues around the country are dealing with a lot of different things on a daily basis, and we certainly have some of those, but it's a pretty special place. I work for a great family and a great board of directors that are really supportive, and great teammates here on campus with everybody from UND. It's a heck of a lot of fun. So some of those early lessons, if I looked at my own life, or if we're going to talk about leadership, I would say my early lessons in leadership were really sports-based, right? A youth hockey environment where you had a captain and 2 assistant captains on every team. So at 10 or 12 or 14, you were put into a position to be a leader of a team and to support teammates and to do all those things. So sports really played a big part in what I think were some of my earliest thoughts on what leadership was. I grew up in Bozeman, Manitoba, which is about 3 hours south of a place called Flin Flon, Manitoba, where a guy by the name of Bobby Clark is celebrated as maybe the greatest leader in sports. He's widely regarded as one of that. And certainly that was a guy in terms of who people had as a mentor or somebody that we looked up to in that part of the world. I certainly remember learning things from him and reading about him and studying him and trying to replicate some of the things that he did in the sports world. Certainly a couple other things, like most of you, I think probably an emphasis from my parents, right? In life, it was all about being a great teammate. Nobody's bigger than the team, right? Treat people the right way and be a leader, be accountable, all those things. So those things were certainly very influential on me. I would also admit that I've got a grandfather that was a farmer there and grew up on the farm when he did a lot of things the right way. And I've certainly found myself at times in life, it may be a little cheesy, but I get to some of those forks in the road and I say, hey, what would my grandpa do? He's no longer with us, but I get to some of those and I say, hey, what would he do? And it gets pretty darn clear, pretty darn quick what the right thing is to do. So those are some of my early thoughts on leadership. today, if I were to talk about like what I think it is today or what is modern leadership, I would be honest and say that I have very, very little formal training in the subject. I'm no expert on the subject. I don't think it's a particular strength of mine, and I'm not an expert in it by any means. I would also admit that I get a little tired of seeing the 33 lists of the best traits, the 19 personality styles. What are the characteristics of a good leader? What makes you this? I would be honest and say I give it very little thought. I don't think I've ever sat and thought, God, I wonder what a leader would do in this situation, or I wonder how I'd present myself as a leader. I don't think I've ever thought of any of those things in my life, and I'm not very learned on the subject. But I do think that I probably rely more on the process. I think I probably think about the things I want to do on a daily basis and how I want to treat people and how I want to go about things. And I guess my hope is that at the end of the day, those things lead to a good outcome or a good result that provide the type of leadership I would hope to provide. So if you were to ask me what I think leadership is, I would say I said I hate lists, so I made a list, right? So I made a list of what I think leadership is. In my mind, it's genuine. Great example. It's Bubba Schweigert standing at his press conference on Saturday night. That was genuine, right? That wasn't manipulative. That wasn't trying to impress anybody. That wasn't trying to fool anybody. That was from the heart and genuine. I think people see through you in 2 seconds. I think you got to be genuine and be who you are. I think leadership encourages a group to accomplish a goal. So call that whatever you want. Is it inspiration? Is it motivation? Whatever it is. Are you pulling people with you to get them across the goal line, right? Are you pulling people with you to try and achieve the goal or the outcome or the end that your company or your organization or your institution is trying to accomplish? I also think leadership today is flexible and adaptable. I think it has to be extremely so, right? The world's changed rather quickly, pandemic and other things, and the way people think. I think you got to be willing to listen. think you got to be willing to take feedback. You got to be able to change and adapt with the times to be effective. I think there's got to be a lot of integrity and honesty. I think you can build a great reputation over a number of years, and you can wreck it in 8 minutes with a lack of honesty or a lack of integrity. And I think the world is still kind of a simple place where people work with people they like, they deal with people they like, they deal with people they trust. And I think that's got to be a core covenant of leadership. The other one, my kids would probably tell you they're sick of hearing it, but I think the one thing I probably talk to them about the most and talk to other people is just embracing the grind, right? I think there's nothing in the world more important today than grit. I think you got to stick with it, never quit, never give up, day after day after day, just keep grinding, keep going. My daughter had her high school graduation here a year ago, and they do the quote wall they put, and something said the quote, and it was, I didn't know it, but I saw it at the grad thing. She put it up, and it said, life is hard, put a helmet on, Dad, right? That was my quote to my kids growing up was, life's hard, put a helmet on, let's go. They'd talk about fair, and I'd say, yeah, it's once a year at the end of June at the fairgrounds. That's when the fair is, right? Life's hard, deal with it, grind it out. And then I think the other thing, leadership has got to be able to own and learn from your mistakes. I've made a ton of them, and I make them every day. I think you got to own them. I think people expect that, and I think you got to encourage other people to make mistakes. We kind of tell our staff, hey, I want you to try things and make mistakes. I want you to take some risks and do some things. If you never get outside the box and you never chase it, you're never going to get anything done. So I'm quick to tell our staff the only people that make mistakes are people who do things. If you don't do anything, yeah, you won't make a mistake, but you won't get anything done. So the other word I always use, I think in leadership today, it's partnership. I think the days of the authoritarian and the guy that's screaming and yelling and scaring people and threatening people are gone. I think within an organization, whether it's a team or a company, people are free agents. They're ready to go, right? Transfer portals, whatever it is. So I think you're in a partnership with the people you work with or the people you oversee or you lead. I think why is really important today. The days of why, maybe you didn't have to tell people why you were doing something or why it was important or why we were going to go a different direction and gain that buy-in, I think is really important. I'm kind of a quote guy, and one of the quotes I often use with our people is, hey, no one cares how much you know till they know how much you care, right? Like in a transactional world, you might get a little bit of a short-term bump. You might be able to get a bump from somebody short-term with a transactional relationship, but really long-term, they got to know how much you care about them before they care how much you know. The other one I always say is, now I say, hey, I think the old rules are old. They're gone, right? In a world that used to kind of be based on chain of command and power and some of that type of relationship, risk and reward, or the threat of something happening, I don't think people respond very well to that anymore. And I certainly live by the theory that the most effective way to motivate somebody is to encourage them, right? I think encouragement is still probably the most effective way to get people going in the right way. The other thing I always say to my staff is, hey, you're not always going to agree with everything I do or say or want us to do. I would just ask you, when those situations occur, come and close the door and let me have it, right? Like if everybody's sitting around the table thinking the same way, somebody's not thinking. If everybody's nodding their head and saying, yeah, we're all on board, somebody's selling out and not thinking. So come and do that the right way and respectfully way, and let's talk about it and let's figure out a better plan. So when we talk about UND, I was thinking for students, there's two kind of legendary UND figures that I had an opportunity to work with when they were on the back nine of their careers that I think would be great for young people to hear about. Those two guys are Tom Clifford from Langdon and Earl Strinden from Litchville. When I got to the Ralph, those two guys were on my board of directors. And to be honest, they were the two guys. I moved here, I didn't know a soul. They took me under their wing, and for the first 4 years I was here, Tom and Earl were really my day-to-day guys with everything that I did at the Ralph. And there's lots of similarities between the two of them. There's also lots of differences, but I think the one thing they had was both extremely genuine. Rob Carolyn wants me to do an impression, but I won't do that here this afternoon. So let's talk Tom Clifford here first. For those of you that didn't get a chance to meet Mr. Clifford, I thought he was magical in his connection to people. One of the most caring and supportive guys that I knew. When you talk to UND alums and people that came through UND, they're always telling you about a tough spot they got into, a situation where they found themselves in. And Tom was a guy that cared enough to go out of his way to help them and to figure it out and get them to the end result. Tom was a huge success by all measures, right? You want to talk enrollment at UND, growth at enrollment, new programs, entrepreneurial spirit, aviation, everything that he did through working with people and really just a magnetic personality. Like he was bigger than life. He's the kind of guy that if he was here today, he would just command the room. He's got a presence. People gravitate to him. He was a good time. He was funny, personable. He just had a magnetic personality. And as a result, he was very, very effective. One of the great leaders that I think in the history of UND and people that I've known did that in a very caring, personable way. Earl Strinden, right? Earl, little different. Certainly as effective, but a little bit different. Just an incredible work ethic. Worked his tail off, worked out. You talk about grind. He grinded and grinded and grinded and just outworked you. Had an absolute laser focus on what had to get done. He was like a dog on a bone. If there was a project to get done, we were going from here to there and getting it done all the way through. And just an absolute command of the spoken word. Really, really great orator, I think would probably be the word. During the name and logo discussions there was many, many meetings and community things, and he would just, I was always amazed at his ability to command a room. One day he pulled me aside and he said, hey, don't point when you're talking to people. I said, what do you mean? He said, you got your finger out, you're pointing. You turn that finger in, get it here. Like everything he did was his thoughts on how he could not offend people or not push them away. And then he, another day he pulled me aside and said, hey, we'd gotten in I can't remember what the situation was. He and I were involved with some other people and there was some type of disagreement or argument. He said, hey, as the other guy gets louder, you get quieter. As he gets louder, you get quieter. He says, you'll drive him crazy and you'll win every time, right? So his ability to communicate and his effectiveness there, I think made him a great leader. So I would say those two guys at UND are two guys that, if you were to ask me who are people that I have seen that are great leaders, I would include both of those guys for very different ways. Tom had that magnetic personality and people skills. Earl had that just grit and grind and laser focus, and he was just going to outwork you and pull everybody with you and get it done. The one, Earl had a great quote that I hope lives on forever at UND. He always said, hey, leave the wood pile higher than you found it. So as a leader, he always saying, leave the wood pile higher than you found it. Okay, there's one other guy I'd mentioned too that Dave Hackstall is a guy, when you talk about people you'd like to replicate, as long as nobody tells him I said this, he's certainly a guy that I was able to watch and observe, and just an incredible leader. It didn't happen by chance that he's working in the job he is today in the National Hockey League. It was kind of a master class in leadership every day, being around him and seeing how he handled people and the personality there and how he managed that and juggled that. And pretty interesting to hear him talk about how he's evolved now, how he's moved from college sports to the National Hockey League, and how he's had to be flexible and adapt to that and change with that. So for some of the young people here, when you talk about leadership skills, Mike was saying one of the things, or maybe some insights as to what you might be able to do or learn. And one of those things I would say is just get outside your comfort zone. Take chances. I always told my kids, hey, if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. If it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. Like, get outside your comfort zone. Take some chances. That's where the growth occurs. If you do the same thing all day, every day, you're not going to grow. You're not going to expand. So take some chances. Get out of your comfort zone. The other one would be seize opportunities to differentiate yourself. In my opinion, there's a lot of young people in the world today that are looking to be told what to do at most steps. They're looking for somebody to hold their hand and guide them. I think you can really differentiate yourself by being that person that takes the bull by the horns and you run with it, right? Differentiate yourself by being a leader, by taking those chances, by taking the initiative to go the step further, to do those things. I will admit to you that I got a theory with new employees. If I go to somebody's desk at 5:05 and the lights are out and it's dark, I usually don't think they're going to make it. And it's proving itself to be true, right? Like when I see people that are taking the extra initiative, doing the extra work, and going after it, 9 times out of 10, those ones are the ones that are succeeding and having greater success. So I would certainly say those are important things. The other one I would say is when you observe somebody or you find somebody that you think is a good leader, hitch your wagon to them. Hitch your wagon to them and see what you can learn from them. Observe them. Steal the things that they're doing well. I'm looking at Eric Martinson in athletics. Eric's got a good line. R&D is rip-off and duplication, right? Who's doing things well and what can we do to replicate it? And I think it's the same with people. Find people that are doing good things, replicate those things, watch how they interact with other people, watch what makes them successful, and do it. Professional development. Mike was talking about maybe a little bit about professional development. One of the things I would say, some of the quotes I use to young people, hey, be concerned with what you're worth, not what you make. So I always tell people, be concerned with what you're worth and not what you make. Take a job today that maybe isn't going to maximize your income for the next 12 months, but is going to build a portfolio and a base of knowledge and a skill set where you can go crank it later. So be concerned with what you're worth, not what you make. I would say, because if you get good enough at anything, the money will be there eventually. You get good enough at anything in the world, the money will be there eventually. So focus on what you're worth, what people can do for you, what opportunities they can provide to you, and how you can grow, instead of what you're going to make on day one and thinking about it that simply. The other thing I always tell our employees is, with regards to leadership or professional development, I say, hey, work should never be the most important thing in your life, right? You got your family, you got your health, you got your faith, you got other things that are important in your life, but it has to be in your top 5. It better be in your top 5, but it doesn't have to be number 1. You got to figure out work-life balance. You got to figure out how to make that work, but it's got to be important to you. It doesn't have to be the most important thing in your life, but it's certainly got to be on the radar. Some of the lessons I learned that I might impart to some younger people, I wish I'd have been a little more purposeful early in my life. When I talked about I pissed away some opportunities academically and educationally early. I wished I'd have been better at that earlier. I think I wished I'd had invested more in my development. And just thinking about what I would say here today, talking about leadership, I haven't done much, right, in terms of formal things. I wished I'd have probably invested more in some of that. The other thing I would say, I wished I'd have probably invested a little bit more in my identifying my values a little earlier in life. So for young people, some of the things I'm telling my own kids, figure out early, what do you want to do? Like, when do you want to work? Do you want to work on nights and weekends with your dad at serving hot dogs at the rink? Do you want to work during the week? What kind of family life do you want to have? What do you want to do recreationally? Where do you want to live? What type of climate? What type of people? What part of the country? What's important to you? So I would say, for young people, I think it'd be a really good exercise to go through and identify what your values are and what things you prioritize, then figure out the plan and work that plan that gives you the best shot at achieving that. I would admit that I kind of waved my way through a career and kind of to where I am. It wasn't always maybe as planned out or as direct as it could have been or should have been. So that would be some advice I'd have for young people. So professionally, right, if we're talking about things you've learned, I would say certainly I continue to be a work in progress, right? Trying to get better at lots of things. I'm shocked when people I think of my own age now and thought you'd have it all figured out, realize that everybody's still winging it at this stage of life. I think I'm a great example. You can train a monkey to do just about anything. And I'm extremely grateful for the opportunities here to be at UND and to work for the Engelstad family and to work at the arena and work at UND. This is an absolutely unique and special place where we have a whole group of people that are all pulling on the rope to try and achieve the same goals, to maximize the opportunity for all our coaches and student athletes and chase championships, professional and human development for our student athletes. It's really a magical place and a great place. So I'm lucky to be here. 3 final things I would say for young people. If I could give you any advice, I'd say, hey, be a great teammate. Be an absolutely great teammate. From what I've seen in the world, great teammates, everybody else props them up. People want to help you. They want you to be successful. They'll push you up the ladder. They'll help you get to levels that you didn't think you could get to if you do it the right way. So be a great teammate. I don't think there's anything more important in your career success than being a great teammate. The other thing I'd say is be you. Be who you are, right? Find situations that are a good fit for your culture, your upbringing, your value system. If you have friends that require you to change who you are to fit in, change your friends. Don't change you. If you have a job that requires you to sell out, sacrifice, do things you don't want to do, don't change. Change the job. Get out. And then the other thing I would just say, go get it, right? For kids from UND, the world is your oyster today. I grew up in a shitty little town where I didn't know a place like Florida even existed, right? We had no internet. I don't think I had the encyclopedia to look it up. But the world is your oyster. Go get it. You're getting a great education. I think that people from this part of the country can go anywhere in the world and be successful. That's not accurate for people from other parts. I think it's a little harder to come to some of our communities in our state to do it. I think we've got a great opportunity here to send people out to take over the world. So go get it, go conquer it. Okay, that's, I think I ran out of time, and I think that's about all I got. I got nothing left.
Thanks, Jody. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for coming. Apologies. We had planned to display Jody's slides, but we just had some technical difficulties. They will be available on the recording that will be on our website once that's posted. So join us next week for Heather Novak, who is the Executive Director of the United Way of Grand Forks and East Grand Forks. Thank you very much. Have a great day.